The bell above the coffee shop door gave one last bright ring before falling still. By 8:30, Hart and grounds belonged to the two of them again. The warm cafe glow softened the wood tables. The pastry case was nearly empty, and the smell of roasted beans and dish soap had settled into the room like something permanent. Behind the counter, Lucas Hart counted the till with the steady hands of a man nobody ever looked at twice. That was the point. In this neighborhood, Lucas Hart was exactly what he appeared to be. A quiet coffee shop owner in his late 30s, dependable, private, and forgettable in the best possible way. He made an excellent flat white. He remembered regulars' orders. He never spoke much about himself, and every evening after the last customer left, he and his son closed up together. Theo, 17 and permanently 1 second away from sarcasm, was wiping down the last table with one earbud in and half his mind somewhere else. "Tell me again," Theo said, dragging the rag lazily across the wood. "Why I need calculus. Be specific." Lucas shut the till drawer. "You don't." Theo looked up. "Really? You need discipline. Calculus is just the weapon they're using." Theo laughed under his breath. "That is so deeply unhelpful." Lucas crossed the room, swiped 2 fingers over the table Theo had supposedly cleaned, and lifted them. Sticky syrup gleamed under the pendant light. Theo groaned. "You're evil." "And yet," Lucas said, handing him the spray bottle again, "I keep your phone on." Theo muttered something under his breath and redid the table. And just like that, the room settled back into the rhythm they knew by heart. It was simple, it was warm, it was real. And for Lucas, that mattered more than anyone could guess. Because this life, the coffee shop, the small house, the ordinary routines, the quiet evenings with Theo, had not happened by accident. It had been built, carefully, deliberately, by a man who knew exactly how dangerous the world could be and had spent years making himself smaller inside it. Theo slung his backpack over one shoulder and reached as usual for the leftover croissants. Lucas barely looked up. "You planning to pay for those?" "I work here." "You also eat here for free. Different crime." Theo grinned, stuffed them into a paper bag anyway, and headed for the door. At the threshold, he paused. "You'll be home in 20? 30. That's not what 20 means." "Yet you understood me." Theo rolled his eyes and pushed the door open. "Night, Dad." Lucas looked up, and there it was again. That quiet, hard thing under his ribs that never failed to move when his son called him that. "Night." Theo disappeared into the city lights. Lucas locked the front door and turned the sign to closed. Outside, the city was shifting into night. Headlights streaked past the windows. Somewhere down the block, music thudded faintly from a passing car. It should have been uneventful, predictable, just another closing shift in the life he had chosen. And for 6 years, that had been enough. Across the city, Vanessa Crown was finishing a dinner she had stopped enjoying at least 40 minutes earlier. She sat at the head of a polished private dining table high above the city, wrapped in black silk and composure, surrounded by board members, executives, and the kind of carefully managed smiles that always showed up whenever power changed hands. Vanessa wasn't just wealthy, she was legacy. Her grandmother, Evelyn Crown, had stepped down from Crown Holdings after decades of building it into an empire. Vanessa, orphaned young, raised under her grandmother's exacting love and brutal preparation, had inherited not just a title, but a world full of men waiting to see whether she could survive it. Some of them called it concern. Some called it transition. Vanessa called it what it was, a test. Of course, one board member was saying in that polished, patronizing tone rich men mistook for wisdom, the market responds best to visible stability. Visible stability. Vanessa wanted to laugh in his face. Instead, she set down her wine glass and gave him a calm look, sharp enough to leave a mark. "And I'm sure," she said, "the market will be comforted to know you've confused sexism with strategy again." A few people went still. A few looked down. At the other end of the table, Evelyn Crown didn't say a word. She simply lifted her water glass, the tiniest acknowledgement that Vanessa had struck exactly where she meant to. By the time the dinner finally ended, Vanessa's head hurt. She had endured enough concerned glances, careful praise, and corporate language disguised as the back lane was narrow, dim, and nearly empty. Vanessa had only taken a few steps before instinct told her something was wrong. She turned and saw two men closing in, another waiting by a black SUV. Too fast, too coordinated. "Miss Crown," one of them said smoothly, "come with us." "No." She twisted, fought, elbowed one of them hard enough to make him curse, but another hand locked around her wrist. The SUV door opened. "Get her in the car." Then a voice cut through the alley. "Let her go." Everything stopped. Vanessa turned and saw him standing in the spill of light from a back service door. Lucas Hart, the quiet barista from the coffee shop. For 1 second, relief hit her. Then she saw his face change. Not with panic, not with fear, with recognition. He looked at the man holding her, caught sight of a tattoo on his neck, and went completely still. Like he knew exactly who these men were. He dropped the trash bag in his hand. "I said," Lucas repeated, his voice low and deadly now, "let her go." What happened next was fast and terrifying. Lucas moved like violence belonged to him. No hesitation, no wasted motion. He twisted one man's wrist until bone cracked, drove another back with brutal precision, disarmed the one with a knife, and used the alley like he'd already mapped every inch of it in his head. Vanessa could only watch. This was not a man improvising. This was a man who had done this before. And the strangest part was this, too. The men seemed to realize it too. Not his name, not his face, but something. Enough to break first. They fled. The SUV tore out of the alley and disappeared into the street, leaving behind silence, blood on Lucas's shirt, and Vanessa staring at him like she had never really seen him before. He turned to her, calm as ever. "Can you stand?" He got her inside the cafe, sat her down, handed her water, checked her injuries, and asked precise questions while blood ran down his side like it barely mattered. He didn't shake, didn't posture, didn't ask for praise. If anything, he looked like a man still waiting for the next threat. By the time her security arrived, Vanessa had only gotten one thing from him: his name. Lucas Hart. She left. But she couldn't stop thinking about him, not because he had acted like a hero, because he hadn't. That night after closing, Lucas stood alone in Hart and Grounds and made a phone call he clearly hadn't needed to make in years. "Find out why D'Amato's dogs were grabbing a woman behind my shop." The answer came back quickly. Vanessa Crown, Crown Holdings, Evelyn Crown's granddaughter. And just like that, Lucas knew the attack was no random alley ambush. Vanessa was the leverage. The next day, while Crown executives wrapped Vanessa in fake concern and polished control, all she could think about was the man who had stepped into danger like he knew it better than anyone should. So she went back to the coffee shop herself. No assistant, no gift basket, no formal thank you, just her. And this time she watched. Lucas worked behind the counter with the same quiet steadiness she remembered from the alley. Only now it showed up in smaller things. The way he remembered names, the way he handled customers without ego, the way he corrected staff without humiliating them, the way he worked like a man who respected his own labor. Then she learned he didn't just work there, he owned the place. And when Theo arrived after school and slipped behind the counter with easy familiarity, Vanessa saw something even harder to ignore. Lucas softened around his son, not in some dramatic, sentimental way, just in the ways that mattered. And suddenly, this wasn't just about the man who had saved her life. This was about the man who had built one, a real one. So before logic could talk her out of it, Vanessa asked him to meet her after closing. That night, in the quiet corner of his own coffee shop, Vanessa Crown looked across the table at the quiet barista who had bled for her in an alley and said the one thing no sane man could have expected: "Marry me." She thinks she's marrying a quiet man with good character. She has no idea she's stepping into the arms of someone far more dangerous than the men who tried to take her. Read this twisted marriage of convenience story now on amplereads.com.